Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So the blue shirt era that we had over the last week from my pre-prepared videos is over. I'm back from a couple days off, and I am ready to record some new content. I'm very ready to record some stuff over the new cards that I think are going to be coming within the next couple of days. So definitely stick around for series or pool 4 and 5, whichever one you prefer to call it. We're going to have a lot of content coming out very, very quickly. But until then, we're going to continue to come up with different deck lists, try different things that we see that look like they could be pretty good. And this one is a deck that, for the most part, one of the mods in my Discord, Alexander Burkott, came up with. I did change out one card. I changed out Magic for Enchantress. I've been seeing Spectrum ongoing. I've been seeing several decks that kind of start sneaking in ongoing cards again. And if you can have initiative against a Spectrum ongoing, you can actually destroy their ongoing effect before Spectrum comes down. You can potentially destroy an armor, cause them to destroy their whole board, and just for any normal ongoing, a Wong you can counter. You can counter a lot of different things with an Enchantress, and I have a hard time using Magic now that you have to have her on 5. It's just a little bit more difficult for me to use, and I think either one functions well, but I did tech in Enchantress instead. The rest of the list was brewed by Alexander, and it operates a lot under the Kingpin or Control style deck list. Now, the idea from this deck is that we can either use Kingpin early onto the board and kind of use that mind game that it starts playing with the opponent of trying to play around that Kingpin or that last turn movement, and then maybe we just drop a leader and copy whatever they played and just have kind of that psychological element to have the opponent misplay. We could drop Kingpin, we could drop a Cloak on 5, and then we could drop a movement card after shifting our Kingpin, or maybe not shifting our Kingpin on 5, and it just makes it a little bit harder for the opponent to kind of anticipate what we're really going to be doing on that last turn play. We could on that last turn do an Aero to force their cards over. We can do Sera on 5 and then drop both Kingpin and Aero on 6. And it's a lot of times hard for the opponent to anticipate that two-piece combo is going to be coming. Now, that one doesn't happen very often. When you hit that 3-piece combo, it's very, very strong. It doesn't happen as often. And so because of that, it's not our only win condition. That's just one of the many ways that we can win with this list. A lot of times you can win with a last turn Aero. You can set up a Daredevil into a strong Sera and an Aero and Killmonger to force a win condition for yourself. You could also go into a leader play on that 6th turn. You could use Aero to set up a leader play for the final turn. You could do a Magneto to pull their Wong out of the Black Panther lane. You can do a lot of really cool things with this list. Typically, I try to curve out some of the energy. I wouldn't hold Enchantress for the perfect target. If that's your only turn 4 drop, I'd say go ahead and tempo drop it. Sometimes 4 power is going to be better than none, and you're not always going to have a good target for Enchantress. White Queen can give you some good information. Same thing with Daredevil. So it's a mixture between the Dino control that we ran and a Kingpin control that uses Sera to do a wider variety of things on that final turn. And so it's kind of hard to explain all of the different play paths, but we have the anti-movement enablers for your opponent's cards with Polaris. We have Aero, we have Magneto. Those will work into the Kingpin synergy. We have Killmonger as a counter. We have Enchantress and Shang-Chi as well as our counter plays. So if we're seeing some really strong cards, we can drop a Shang-Chi and a Cloak on the final turn, a Shang-Chi, Cloak, and Daredevil, a Shang-Chi and a Killmonger, a Shang-Chi and a Polaris on the final turn. We have a lot of kind of flexibility in how and where we can drop our power. And then the rest we've covered before, but that is kind of a brief explanation of the list. It's hard to get a feel for it right off the bat. Let's go ahead and jump into a couple games, and I will show you how I navigate it, and I'm sure there are ways to optimize both the list and the gameplay, but I've had some pretty good success with it, so I did want to share it with you guys. All right, so next up we have Ecrodist, and the first location is the hub, which gives us Galactus. So a little hint, maybe that's foreshadowing to the first Series 5 card that we're going to end up pulling. Maybe it's going to be Galactus. We do have our Cloak, which we could go ahead and throw onto the board. I think we're going to start setting up for a potential maybe Aero play or a leader play. And so with that, we want Daredevil as our kind of guide. Now they did play into the Vibranium Mines, which is interesting. because that's going to shuffle 3 Vibranium into their deck. That's going to start clogging it up. Maybe if they're looking at running like a Zoo or a 1-cost deck, we have Killmonger as a hard counter to that in this list. And so let's go ahead and play Cloak into the Bifrost. It's not like they're not going to get this Hood card moved over as a result of the Bifrost anyways. So let's go ahead and play some power there. That way we can at least start competing for them. Ooh, and then they play Demon and Blade. So yeah, it looks like they are running a very, very heavy 1-cost deck. And right now, at least up until this point, it doesn't, to me, look like we're running a counter deck. It looks like we're running some kind of weird hybrid Daredevil move style list. So if I snap, I don't think that they'll be scared away. Because we're going to be able to kill this card. We're going to be able to wipe their board, except for the Vibranium, which is indestructible unless we use Enchantress. And so let's go with a White Queen. We're going to get a little bit of insight into what their highest cost card is, or what their highest cost card in hand is. Actually, it's gonna be a free swarm. So we'll get a free swarm out of it, which isn't, I mean, it could be worse. So we know that this lane is going to be 4 power, is only going to be 4 power after we drop our Killmonger. Unfortunately, this game, it doesn't look like we're going to have really much use out of like the Aero or the Kingpin that we have still hidden in our deck, but it is there just in case. Okay, and so they skip. They can do 1 additional card here. So I think what we're going to do is play Aero. We're going to hold our Swarm for now. Next turn, we can do something like a Killmonger and a Polaris, because we know that this lane is not going to be able to be won by them. So we do have the Swarm. We'll do Killmonger, Swarm, Polaris potentially on the final turn. I think we'll be able to outpower them. They're not going to see the Killmonger coming. Nothing about this that we have on the board right now says watch out, a Killmonger is coming my way. And so we're going to go ahead and throw that there. So they did skip. So I'm actually going to play our Swarm into the far left lane, just in case they are dropping an Infinite. If they're dropping an Infinite and some Swarms, they could actually outpower us here potentially. And so let's rearrange this. Just in case it's the 2 Swarms here, we want more than 6 power, and so we have that beaten. If they drop a Swarm here, we want to have this power beaten, and right now it would be 4, so it's going to bring it up to 7. And so we want to make sure that we have that power beaten as well. And so this should cover our bases, just in case they do have the Infinite play. I'm expecting 3 cards. Ooh, no. So, it is 3 cards, but it's the Chavez and then the Swarms, which is not going to be enough. We already just inherently win this middle location, but the Killmonger is going to make sure that we win the middle and the right lane. So it's a 4 cubes. It's not the way that we want to. We want at least 1 really good Kingpin interaction with these games, because it always feels so satisfying. But from my experimentation, what I found is that you can't really build a deck to rely on Kingpin, similar to a Sandman, that when it works really well. But what about those games where you don't have that combo in hand to make it work? And so let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, so next up we have Astros. The first location is the Bifrost. So cards are going to move after turn 4. We're going to see if we can find a way to leverage Kingpin here, because we do have Sera. So now if we can do either an Aero on that last turn as kind of a surprise play, we can do Polaris as a way to pull a card over into it. I just think we have a few options, but I do think it's going to be good to just tempo drop our Cloak. I don't think there's going to be any downside from us having it here. I think having the Cloak here will just be a good tempo drop. Now we can use a Polaris and pull their card over, and then we start buffing up our Polaris into Muir Island. If we can find ourselves with high tempo or better tempo. So we do pull their Nightcrawler out of the Bifrost. So for a turn 4 drop, we could do White Queen. We also have our Shang-Chi as a way to counter, like if this Vulture gets really, really large, we can counter that. So I think we're going to play our White Queen into Muir Island. I think that's the lane that we're going to push to win. And then we'll look for a counterplay with like a Sera or a Shang-Chi, or maybe even a last turn Kingpin. If they don't know, since this is a movement deck, if they don't know that we have Kingpin, we know that they have Heimdall. We could force them into using a Heimdall shift to destroy whatever lane we put our Kingpin in, which I think is going to be our secret win condition, actually. Let's go ahead and play Sera into Where Island. We're just going to let her continue to buff up. And then depending on what they drop and where their cards are kind of placed this turn. So a Nova and a Carnage is kind of spicy in a movement deck list, right? Okay, so we have this lane. We have this lane 1. We can do a couple of things. They have initiative, so our Kingpin is not going to destroy their cards. So in that case, we do a Shang-Chi here, which will kill these 2. We need more than 5 power. So we need Daredevil. And we'll go ahead and throw our Killmonger in as well. I think that should win it for us. That should destroy these cards that get pushed over here. These cards are going to push over here, and 8 and a 6 is not going to destroy, is not going to beat us here. I think we have them outpowered in this far right lane. I am confident enough, I think we could snap, but we're just going to let it ride out. So the Heimdall mid is not where I thought it was going to be, but it is fairly predictable nonetheless. And so the multiple man is going to bounce back. The only power they have over there is 6. We destroy both their Kraven and their Vulture, leaving this far left lane very, very susceptible to counterplay. We go ahead and outpower them with a measly 8, and then in Where Island, we outpower them as well. So we did have the Kingpin if we had initiative, and so maybe there are ways to refine this list so that you continue to have tempo advantage over your opponent. But the Kingpin is just one of the win conditions, but I do want to see a Kingpin win condition. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one, see if we can find that win condition. All right, so next up we have KSA Saki. The first location is Daily Bugle. We get an Aero from them, and it's a pretty cool Aero variant. Aero has a lot of really sleek variants that we can play with. Now we do have our Kingpin. If we can draw into Sera, that's going to be phenomenal. That's going to give us a lot of insight, a lot of information that we can use, and we can always drop both of those on that final turn to force them into inopportune playlines. Now, since it's a move deck, I don't think they have too many one-cost cards. I am going to go ahead and throw down our Killmonger. I want to see if Los Diablos base is going to destroy the Nexus or the Daily Bugle. Unfortunately, they do go ahead and move their Nightcrawler the first turn, and so Kraven does get the buff from it, but maybe we can still find some upside. We don't have Sera, so we would need to drop our Kingpin unless we think they're going to push their cards. I think I'm going to drop White Queen to get a little bit more information about what cards they're running. Ooh, so we know that they had the Aero. We know that they have Leader as well. Oh, and we capped out our hand. What are we thinking? They have initiative. If we can figure out a way to have initiative going into this last turn, then we can just drop a Leader play and end up just winning. I think we drop Aero in the far left. We drop their Aero in the far left. And then we'll see what they drop. I don't know what they're going to drop. I'm not sure. Ooh, so they drop our Aero. They drop their Aero. We drop their version of Aero. And we also know that they have Leader. So depending on where they drop Leader could determine who wins. So if we drop Leader here and they drop Leader here, then they'll win this lane. If we drop Leader here and they drop Leader here, theirs will copy infinitely. So I think they play Leader here. I'm going to drop a Kingpin and a Polaris. They don't have any 1 or 2 cost cards that they're going to be able to play. If they play Leader here and we do a Kingpin and a Polaris, that will pull Kraven over. That will destroy him here. I'm going to snap back. That's going to destroy him here. Their Leader will win them this lane, but we will win the Daily Bugle and we will win the Ruins. Super strange playline, but I think we're going to be able to make it work. I expect 1 card here and it to be their Leader. Ooh, no, so they do Leader in the far right lane, which is okay. Oh, never mind. No, it's yeah, it's okay. So we get the Kingpin, we get the Polaris, which pulls their Kraven. Our Kingpin or their Polaris didn't have anything to pull. Ours did. So we win the far right lane with our Leader play. We win the mid with our Aero play, and as such, we are fine. Now, had they played where I thought they were going to play, we actually would have lost because I, for whatever reason, didn't calculate in the 9 that they were going to be copying from the Leader itself. We got very lucky. We got very lucky with the Kingpin play. That was not ideal. This deck list does have some play around potential, but I think there might even be some room to optimize it even further. Now, what this deck list does well is it gives you a lot of different win conditions and a lot of different surprise elements. So nobody, I doubt they anticipated a Kingpin and a Polaris on that final turn. Similarly, the Aero play can be a surprising finisher. The leader, the Magneto, all can be surprising finishers. If you drop your Kingpin early, that's not always your only win condition, and so they might try to play around it and play into your other win condition instead. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.